What's up, ladies and gents? JV wins. Dogon SS. We are back. Constant approach. Stream number blank. I'm still gonna make that count so we can figure out how many streams we've done. But while I am in the process of doing that, man, appreciate everybody for joining us along for the ride. Thank you for tuning into the stream. Constant approach here on YouTube. Thanks to everybody for the support. Go ahead and do your boys a big old solid if you appreciate the commentary on any of our videos or content, and subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to the channel. Hit that like button. Leave a comment. Let us know what you think, man. We have a blast doing this each and every Tuesday, as well as throughout the week as we publish content to the channel, man. So thanks in advance to everybody who will do that, and to everybody who has supported along the way. Thank you as well for supporting our brand of logical content. We certainly appreciate it. Got a lot of interesting things to talk about tonight. Interested to hear what the community has to say about some of these topics. First up, we are going to start with our friend and yours, Mr. Meek Mill, who just, he is a content machine, and I don't think that he does this intentionally. Which makes his existence in the world all the more flabbergasting, because I don't think he tries to incite conversation. I think he just shoots off from the hip, and he doesn't know how to control his emotions or think before he acts. And he ends up creating this ensuing conversation, although he had no intentions of doing so. Meek Mill, also, by the way, friend of the channel. We have used him as content on the channel long enough that he certainly qualifies as a friend of the channel. And in this latest instance of Meek Mill doing something that is conscious approach worthy, he is now talking about how Black people are in need of therapy due to excessive or unreasonable social media use, depending on how you look at it. So, this is definitely ironic given the person who is saying it. But nevertheless, his comments are such that they warrant some discussion, partly because it's him, but also because of what he said exactly. So go ahead and pull this article up real quick so that we can talk about what Mr. Meek had to say about social media and people who need therapy. So this here says Meek Mill claims Black people need therapy because of social media. Meek's claims sparked debate about social media among fans. Meek Mill has had a few rough months. Things got started earlier this year when he released his new EP, Heathenism. The 5-track EP features Future and Fivio Foreign, but that didn't help it perform well commercially. The project did underwhelming numbers by Meek standards, something that 50 Cent hasn't let him live down in the months since. Though Meek did attempt to provide a defense for the poor sales, saying that this was just a side project to conclude his record deal, many fans weren't buying it. Even more of the viral hate directed at Meek comes from his affiliation with Diddy. Back in February, an explosive lawsuit was filed against the rap mogul by one of his former collaborators, Lil Rod. It features multiple references to other famous rappers like Young Miami and, of course, Meek Mill. That's caused fans to dig up a decade's worth of videos and photos of Meek hanging out with Diddy. Just earlier today, Diddy's situation got even worse when graphic video of him allegedly assaulting Cassie was leaked by CNN. Unsurprisingly, Meek took to social media today to talk about the damage that those very platforms have done to the Black community. Check out what he had to say below. So there's Meek's tweet there. It says, the Black community needs therapy over social media point blank. The points we be trying to make don't lead to anything, just a bunch of people pointing fingers all day. I talk because I see a generation run by computers. Computers don't suffer, but people do. In a new tweet, he took aim at social media platforms. Oh no, wait, I'm just reading the whole thing again. The replies feature mixed reactions from fans, including many pointing out that Meek himself could also use a break from social media. What do you think of Meek Mill's comments about the Black community needing therapy from the effects of social media? So, I don't know if he articulated his point in the way that he intended to in his mind, or in the way that he thinks that he was saying it in his mind, but that's how it came out. He's saying Black people need therapy over social media, and all he sees is people living behind computers or through computers, but computers don't suffer and people do. Now, granted, let me remind people that this is the same Meek Mill who attended a speaking summit and commented on how the music industry profits off of negativity and pays more for negative content in music, despite the fact that his music, even today, frequently contains negativity still. And there are various other contradictions that Meek has engaged in throughout the years when it comes to what he says publicly. So just take what he has to say with a grain of salt. But be that as it may, what do you make of Meek Mill's comments about social media and the black community in need of therapy?
It's hard to disagree with that. So, I mean, I do agree. I do think that more of us do need to seek some type of help out here in the mental health department. So it's kind of hard to disagree with Meek on that front. Of course, you mentioned his blatant hypocrisy here. He spends a lot of his time on social media, but I'm probably sure hopefully he has a therapist. He can afford those resources. But him being an advocate for it, I mean, I this is the kind of message where I don't really care who says it. So yeah, man, I do think that I think everybody needs help in America. I think everybody needs help in America, but especially here in the black community. The one thing about um, mental health in the black community, there's this obvious stigma that goes on with mental health. People saying, "Oh, I don't need it," or because you're going to a therapist, you're crazy. That tends to go on a lot in our community. But I think those ways are kind of dying down because of the overall mental health movement that's been going on in the country. And I think also that's kind of rubbed off on black people too. So I don't think they're less inclined as they once were. But the things that are concerning when it comes to the mental health field is the lack of black therapists. And I would say that that would be one of um, the bigger reasons that would ultimately either deter people away from seeking therapy or probably getting the right kind of therapy that they need. When I was in school, it was always a big thing to emphasize that they always wanted more psychologists, male psychologists, doctors, or black women, just in general, just black people. I had to look it up right now. Out of the all the psychologists or therapists in America, black people only make up 4% of it. And the major thing that I learned in my undergrad in psychology, the thing that really brought it home for me was when there's two different types of therapy. There's the traditional type that's being taught, and then there's the black, the Afrocentric kind. And it's not to just be different, it's just that the psychology of black people in America is different than that of any other culture. And so I think what I'm getting at is I think that everybody should seek therapy from somebody from their same cultural background. And because of that cultural background, there's more of an understanding of the traumas, the socioeconomic things that, the reason why, Lil Dante was mad at school today was because, he really didn't have no food for real. And him showing out like this is because, he's frustrated. And a therapist who went to school with somebody like Lil Dante wouldn't just cast him out as somebody that's down the road to failure. They will understand and identify that this young man is coming from a unique environment and he needs a certain type of cultivation. And so at that point, having a cultural background, socioeconomic background that looks like you, talks like you, can understand you, I think that would also help boost the amount of people that go and stay and actually get some type of reform. But if somebody tries to bring something up to a therapist who can identify, who can try to empathize as much as they want, but still probably don't understand exactly where they're coming from, prescribe things either socially or what have you that are from a perspective that the recipient may not understand or can actually work out due to their background and where they're from and where they're currently at. So there's a lot of contributing factors to why I feel like the percentages are low. But still, be that as it may, I still think that overall, as a community, we do need to embrace mental health more. So yeah, Meek Mill, somebody I typically disagree with. He's a walking contradiction at this point, so there's not really much to say on that front. But I agree on this take. I think we do need to invest a little bit more in our mental health than on seeing how many likes and shares we can get. But your thoughts? How do you feel about Sir Meek Mill? Uh, putting prioritizing at least mental health over social media.
So there. I hear your take is pretty is well taken. I hear all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's kind of a macro way that I take his comments, and then there's a micro way. The macro way is like how this particular dynamic affects everybody, not just black people.
Mm-hmm.
And then the micro way is specifically what does this indicate in terms of the black experience, right? So, on a macro sense, what he's saying is true, but black people aren't the only people who are in need of therapy due to the presence of social media. This is an issue that I think humanity is currently trying to figure out how they can best reconcile, and it's having unintended consequences across various aspects. For example, and some of these examples are pretty obvious and blatant. And
Mm-hmm.
these are things that are affecting everybody, especially in this country. You look at things like insurance, for example, and you can ask the question like, okay, well, how is this? What does this have to do with like social media use and all of that kind of stuff? Like just on a very basic level. Um, auto insurance, for example. If your premium keeps going up and you're trying to figure out why it's going up, well, there is an increase in the amount of like car wrecks that are taking place. And a lot of these car wrecks are due to distracted driving from people who are literally not paying attention to the road because they can't control their addiction when it comes to being in their feeds and on their phones, even while they're driving, sometimes at high speeds. So those are one of those unintended consequences. Another unintended consequences, and you may not you specifically, but people in general may think that this is kind of out there and trivial and not very connected. But look at the wild state of relationships these days. We've lamented the state of relationships on this channel before and how one of the challenges that people face when it comes to being successful with relationships is how to effectively navigate the advent of a multitude of options. And it's very easy to be exposed to those multitude of options when you can just, swipe your phone all the time and see all the different people doing all the different things on all your different feeds and platforms and profiles every day. And it can create a sense of waywardness within you where you are sitting there saying, how can I get a piece of that, be involved in that, be a part of that? And it compromises your ability to find contentness and happiness with what you already have, thus somewhat compromising the already fragile state of relationships and partnerships that people find themselves in. And these are things that are affecting everybody across the board, which is why I kind of refer to it in the macro sense. But even in the micro sense, when we talk about black people and black Americans, however you want to characterize us, um, we are affected by those same things as well. It's the same things that are affecting things in the macro sense. But I think the unique place that we have in this particular ecosystem is people like Meek Mill. See, it's funny that he's the one who talks about this kind of stuff because through his music, he provides said therapy to a large segment of our population. So, for the many people in our community who don't have access to therapy because they don't have the means or the resources, music becomes their therapy. So when you are an individual such as Meek Mill, you you maintain a particular burden of responsibility when it comes to this particular dynamic. Because as one of the cultural champions for your people through this music, you produce content that people lean on for some sort of semblance of therapy, whether you like it or not. So through the music he puts out, there's a large percentage of us who listen to what he says, and not just him, but all of these other artists, and that is their therapy. How to navigate their own particular reality on a daily basis. A lot of these cues they're picking up from some of the content inherent in a lot of these individuals' music. So when you're Meek Mill and you put the content out that you put out, there's a certain level of responsibility that you have for the need of said therapy that you speak of. And in many ways, he kind of bolsters or reinforces a lot of what he puts out through his music, through his very own social media activity. So I kind of see it as like a it's like a revolving door type thing. You know, historically, a lot of these artists who are able to become successful in the music game, they used music as an avenue for therapy to kind of reconcile their own traumas. And now they are producing music, and a lot of people from their own community are listening to their music in order to help reconcile some of their traumas, right? It's kind of the circle of life type thing when it comes to different avenues with which people can explore the best way for themselves to be able to reconcile their own existence, whether it's dealing with trauma, whether it's dealing with, a perceived slight, somebody did you wrong, somebody disrespected you, you don't got enough money, you don't drive the kind of car you want to drive, you're not dating the kind of women you want to date, you're not dating the kind of men you want to date, you're upset because you made this decision. You're mad because you are a single parent and you're co-parenting with somebody who sucks as a co-parenter. Whatever challenges you may be dealing with in life, there's a large percentage of our population who seeks out the music of people like Meek Mill in order to reconcile how to best deal with those things. And so Meek Mill, in a roundabout way, becomes their therapy. So it's weird that he talks like this because he seems as though he is oblivious to this, and I completely believe that he is oblivious to this. But it is what it is, and this is what you have when you have successfully curated this music as a predominant cultural signifier for so many in our population because we have nothing else to kind of cling to for inspiration. And I really do think that this is a micro way of looking at this because, broadly speaking, even though there are people from other communities who can look to music in order to help with their own various reconciliations, I think it happens more often with us because, as you stated, there aren't very many, black. What was your percentage that you put out there?
4%.
4%. That's very, very low. So just like there's a very low percentage of black therapists out there, there's also a very low percentage of black entrepreneurs juxtaposed to the overall population. There are plenty of black entrepreneurs out there, but juxtaposed to the rest of the population, there's very little black entrepreneurs. There's very little black scientists. There's very little black astronauts. There's very little black CPAs. There's very little black owners of restaurants. There's very little black of anything. So, another person from a different community can say, yeah, I got this music, but I also got this person who owns this construction business. Or my CPA is this white person, or my trainer is this Hispanic person, or or the person rather, who took this particular app, to be publicly traded, that was started by a group that was made up of like 3 white dudes and 2 Hispanic women or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So on a micro level, the reason why this becomes more palpable within our community is because we just have so very little examples of anything else to counterbalance it. Um, so I think he's right, but I also think that he is part of the problem because he produces a particular form of content that his own community seeks out as therapy. And they exact that therapy oftentimes on social media, the very same way that he does. So he's right on the surface in what he's saying, but he's also a part of what has caused this thing to be a persistent theme for our community, to begin with, and as it continues moving into the future. So I hear what he's saying, and I hope that he's trying to reconcile his own traumas because he certainly has no shortage of them. But he is also a part of the tapestry of the need for Black people to better adhere to more healthy forms of coping when it comes to mental challenges, traumas, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I agree. You can't, but again, this is the hypocrisy of Meek. This is how he gets down. He doesn't have a firm stance on anything. So one minute he wants to bang, next minute he wants to say stuff that makes sense. But as you mentioned, music is treated as therapy in our community, and they go run and listen to Meek while he's again promoting the same trauma that has the people depressed in the first place. So yeah, it's a point well taken. And I think that overall, for the people that are just really seeking that, on the fringe, or I don't know, um, it's going, you have to make that step at some point. A large part of what's going on in our community is the lack of, as you mentioned, coping skills and various strategies of understanding your own mind, understanding the mind around the people that surround you. And if you didn't have practice on working on that, then frustration could be a reality for that person. So seeking therapy and getting those things ironed out, it would help our community a bunch. But as I also mentioned, we also need more in the field as far as a profession. And being misdiagnosed uh, would be, it is very common in our community due to the fact of the lack of understanding from the healthcare provider, and they're over there and they're not understanding why this behavior is the way it is. So he must be a nuisance or something. So yeah, I agree with this 100%. Hopefully more people take heed to this. Hopefully he take heed to his own advice and go try to clean up some of that trauma, because most of his tweets or Instagrams and songs, everything he does screams trauma. So yeah, hopefully he seeks that out, and maybe then he'll start to clean himself up and clean up his message. And for everybody that is watching and following him, hopefully they, because there's still the people out there that do that. So hopefully those people to take heed and learn one thing or two, and then not be Meek Mill fans no more, because they actually see what's going on. It's like, oh man, I can't believe this. So yeah, man, a lot of our people are in a deep sleep. They're in a stupor, man. They're in a coma,
Yeah,
and it's a psychological one. So in order to get up out of that, they need some tools, and you learn that from therapy. So yeah, man, I gotta advocate for this. That still doesn't. He's still not allowed to contact me for my social media services. This was a better post, but me knowing Meek Mill, I'm pretty sure he's going to come out with something insane within the week. So not really pressed
yeah.
about that.
Well, it's the pot calling the kettle black because he's in need of the very same therapy that he is speaking on.
Mm,
It's just hilarious, and you bring up a very good point about the lack of people who look like us in these respective fields. That's just an overarching. I
hmm
see that as a challenge across the board.
hmm
Um, it's obviously it has to start somewhere,
hmm
but I think that you get more, like I said before, you get more Black scientists, you get more Black accountants, you get more Black people in STEM applications, you get more Black civil engineers, you get more Black people in IT. Not that that isn't taking place, it is. But again, if you juxtapose it to every other community, I guarantee you, unless it's music or sports, we are at the lower end in any of these various micro universes.
hmm
And so you're going to get more of us who are practitioners and who seek out those resources when there's more of us who are actively participating in it from a practitioner standpoint. So that's actually a very good aspect of this that I didn't initially think of, but it is true nonetheless.
hmm
Um, there's more of us that need to be involved in this so that more of us can say, maybe I need to listen, maybe I need to go sit on this dude's or this woman's couch instead of, listening to Playboy Cardi
Correct.
or 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 Lil Baby or Key Glock. another one of these people that a lot of
Uh,
us listen to,
Key Glock.
when we're seeking out help for answers and seeking out our own various reconciliations. So
Word. And then again, once the help was sought after, then at that point they can hear how backwards uh those old coping strategies used to be. So
yeah,
and that comes from the addictions, the music, foods. It's a lot of things that come with it. So yeah, man, I'm all in favor for cleaning it up. So yeah, straight up.
yeah, yeah. Meek coming through once again with the content, friend of the channel. But yeah, otherwise he can get out of here.
Hey, but let us know in the comment section, guys. What are your thoughts? Do you agree with Meek Mill? Do you feel as though the Black community needs to invest more in their mental health over comments and likes on social media? But one thing you guys can do is comment and like on this video. Also, make sure you subscribe.
Yeah. Or just overall, because I think what he was trying to say was black people need therapy because of the way we use social media all the time,
Yeah,
or
for sure.
in the various ways that we use it. So, I hear all of that, but look in the mirror, bro.
Uh-huh.